During the course of iGEM, our project started to become more complex. Our final goal seemed to be further and further away.
How can engineers include responsibility and relevance in their design? This question is what we aimed to answer during the last two videos. In the first video, we showed that relevance and responsibility are important for our project. And in the second video, we showed the process of including relevance and responsibility.
The first few months, we as a team only focused on improving scientific techniques. We looked deeply into the scientific aspects and just assumed that we could tackle the antibiotic resistance problem with it. We thought that we had a relevant and responsible project. Only later in the project, after a lot of stakeholder interaction, we were able to understand the real pains in the antibiotic resistance field and how we could adapt our design in a way that it could be implemented in society. Reflecting on our project, integrated human practices became a crucial part of our project. Without our stakeholders' interaction, we would not have managed to integrate relevance and responsibility. So integrated human practices is important, but the funny thing is that the teams tend to skip integrated human practices as teams think they can cover relevance and responsibility without external feedback. Even though it is generally known that stakeholder interaction is important to reflect on the direction of the project. Also, there are a lot of detailed tools available to help teams do stakeholder interaction for example, iGEM teams like the iGEMer's Guide to the Future.
The real challenge is how to integrate these two elements. What you can learn about the societal problems you would like to address by stepping into the wider world, and how you can bring to bear the technical resources and knowledge you have as a synthetic biologist. So in an engineering program, that's very important that students are taught how to do that. And I think that iGEM itself is a very inspiring way.
In the midst of our project, we started to realize there might have been something off with the focus in our project because integrating problem and technique was not going smoothly. We reflected on our teamwork and did a team evaluation to see if we could identify why this was the case.
With the team evaluation, we discovered that it was useful to identify our team members according to the engineering roles that the VTU, a collaboration between the technical universities of the Netherlands, has developed their vision for the future education. This way, we aim to get more insights in why our team had big challenges in integrating problem with technique and why there were not much motivations for stakeholder interaction.
The TU Delft has been thinking about a new educational strategy from 2015 onwards, and we have had a think tank to think about future education at TU Delft and what future engineers should learn.
After analyzing our team composition with the 4 different engineering roles, we found out that most of us were the type of engineers focusing on integration and optimization of science, instead of focusing on industry and society. The visions of entrepreneurial engineers and contextual engineers were underrepresented, and therefore the focus was mainly on fundamental scientific research and improving science. The classic scientific view overruled the stakeholder interaction view. We could state that we had an unbalanced view on the project approach.
When we were talking about the values and perspectives of stakeholders, not all of our team members were equally convinced of the added value to our project.
Now we can definitely see how the interaction with stakeholders has driven and shaped our work into more than just a scientific project.
After gaining some useful feedback and after having some positive experience with stakeholder interaction, team members slowly started to realize that interaction with stakeholders was relevant, and this positively influenced our project. The team members grew more into roles of contextual and entrepreneurial engineers, while focusing on the science, but also on the business and context. The engineering roles became more balanced. From this point on, doing integrated human practices became easier and therefore more relevant and responsible due to all feedback of the stakeholders. The challenge is when missing the entrepreneurial and contextual engineer in a team, and when an engineering team has only the classic type of engineers, there is a chance that integrated human practices will never get started, as the classic engineer types are simply not intrinsically motivated to do this. They might see the feedback from stakeholders as a limiting factor instead of seeing it as an opportunity. There is a chance you end up with a microbial carrier, which is a fun project for fundamental science, but was not directly a relevant or responsible project. Once aware of your team composition, you know what your skills are and which engineers you have in your team and are still missing. You can balance your team by working together with engineers of all categories. We believe that balancing these 4 roles within your team will help you to do better integrated human practices, which is the key for a relevant and responsible design. You can find tips to balance your team on our website. We, as iGEM TU Delft, are convinced that we should have done stakeholder interaction intensively from the start of our project.
Engineers need to be more focused on responsibility and relevance of their complex engineering solutions. For example, the iGEM team is struggling with this topic and has chosen to address this with the method, which is the use of different roles to create different perspectives to create better engineering solutions.
So, when starting a project with engineers, make sure that you are aware of the engineering roles you have in your team and be aware of the tendency to follow a certain project approach. Get to know your team members by using the engineering test and use the workshop we designed together with the full TU that help teams to reflect on their project while using the strengths of the different types of engineers. This way, your team will come up with better solutions that fit environment, society and industry. Your team will be more capable of integrating stakeholders' feedback. Therefore, your team will achieve a responsible and relevant project.
We believe that science is not only about science, but also about
the environment, the future, ethics,
Responsibility, relevance,
norms,
impact,
stakeholders, society,
safety, values,
interdisciplinary teamwork.